Yeah, it's hard to believe that it's been 15 years since I started doing this competition, and I look forward to it every year. The work that is produced by photographers in Nature Vancouver is just outstanding, and this year is no different. um, no different in terms of the quality of the work that we've got. It's going to be a little bit different in the way that I'm doing the presentation, though.
There you go, you're on.
We've had submissions from 36 photographers. That's just incredible. And I really want to thank all of you photographers for participating in this, as well as Nature Vancouver members. There's almost 60 of you out there now. And that makes all the work worthwhile, that it's so well received. So this year, I'm going to give you a concentrated group of the best photographs of all the submissions. So I've selected the 100 top scoring photographs. I'm going to show you just 100 instead of the whole works as I usually do. And this is going to give me a little bit more time to explore the individual photographs and hopefully kind of raise awareness of just what a great job our photographers are doing. It's too easy to miss the subtle details that make the difference between a really, really excellent photograph and one that's okay. But so I hope that this will be as enjoyable for you as it has been for me. Okay, so I'm going to I'm going to spend a bit of time talking about each of the photographs, and at the end of each section, I'm going to announce the runners-up for second and third place winners. In the past, we've always left those to the very end, but this time I'm going to do it at the end of each section. Okay, so I'm going to start screen sharing, and we'll kick it off. So this is the photograph that was best in show last year. Just stuck that in to kind of set the quality level for this year, and I think you're going to agree that what you're going to see stands up very well. So we're starting off with the other natural history segment, and these pictures are not. I'm not showing them in any particular order. They're pretty much the order that they arrived. And what a way to start off. Daphne's photograph of these ice crystals is just outstanding. The detail in the crystals is great. That's a matter of focusing. But the lighting in this picture shows the texture between the crystals. The lighting is also casting shadows in the background, which makes a nice contrast. And then Daphne's framing the branches in the background just fills the space, which otherwise would be completely blank. So the lighting and the composition here just outstanding. Another one of Daphne's photographs. Incredibly clear air. Now I'm going to indulge a little bit here, and this is something else I haven't done before. As mentioned, I've done a lot of teaching, and critiquing was always a major part of those classes. So I'm going to toss in a little bit of critiquing. These are not criticisms as much as suggestions for things that might be tried. And in this case, whenever I see a large expanse of empty area in a photograph, as we have in the sky here, it's a fantastic sky, but there's an awful lot of it. What would that look like if a bit of that sky at the top was cropped off. Easy enough to make a duplicate, try the cropping. If you don't like it, go back to your original. This photograph is all about the position of the camera. Bettina has chosen exactly the right spot to stand when she made the photograph. Curves and angles are always the most interesting lines you can have in a photograph. And here we've got a beautiful combination of both, the curving shoreline and then the angle of the mountainside behind. It's really well done. And one of the real advantages to being a photographer is that photographers tend to see things that many other people miss. And this kind of detail that we're looking at now is one of those things that most people just would not take any notice of. And again, the direction of the lighting is critical here, backlighting the ice crystal so that we can see detail right inside the crystal, and then placed in front of a darker background, which just makes the crystal pop. So once again, something that might have been tried a little differently, the branch in the background could have been moved a little bit outside of the picture for one of the shots. You make this shot, then you look around and see if there's anything you could change that maybe might be an improvement. It's nice to see something different for a change. Anyone who's not a diver would be most understandably assume that those thorns are sharp and prickly. In fact, sea cucumbers are just bags of water, and the whole animal is completely soft, including the thorns. But really nice to see something unusual like this. Talk about unusual, talk about seeing things that many people would not even notice. This is hair ice. It's thin strands of ice. I once looked this up, and I didn't quite understand the explanation, but these strands of ice are about the thickness of a human hair. They can be 8 inches long, and they're extruded from rotting wood. And there's some connection with a fungus that's always present, but that's the part I didn't quite understand, what the fungus had to do with it. But once again, not only has Ron noticed this, seen it, made an excellent photograph of it, but what is making this excellent is again the direction of the light. So the light is showing the texture, and the backlighting is highlighting the strands. Just really nice. Again, Nina's spotted something that I bet most people walking by would not even have noticed. This pattern of reflections is really, really nice. I'm not particularly an abstract guy, but I really like this. But there's a principle that I always use myself. When you're looking at a scene, thinking about making a photograph, you decide what is important and fill the photograph with only that. And that leads me to wonder why, when the pattern of the reflections and the branches at the top are contributing as well, that's what's of great interest here. So why do we have the bits of land and the lower left and the upper left? So I'm not saying you don't make this photograph, you make this shot, and then you look around to see what else you might be able to do and make more photographs. One of the biggest problems with many photographers these days is they take one picture and walk away. Well, one picture isn't even a beginning, as you'll see. It's hard to believe, again, for non-divers, this is a local fish, and even with those bright colors, he's completely camouflaged in our local waters. They stay still. They don't move even when you approach them. They rely on that camouflage. We think of the tropics as having bright colors, but no, we've got them here too. And here again, gooseneck barnacles, beautiful color and beautifully recorded by Terry. This should be a disaster. There is so many things going on that it just should be too busy to work, but it does work. Murray has managed to separate the individual components enough that they don't interfere with one another. And we just have a series of really interesting shapes. You can see that the picture is slightly square, so it's been cropped a little bit, and that's just fine. It's cropped to concentrate on the most important elements of the composition. And again, nice going, Murray, for even seeing this. Many of us would not. I'm not sure that I would have stopped to photograph that. Good seeing. And Jerome is showing us something that not very many of us have seen, at least not this close, the blowholes of a whale. So once again, one of the great things about this competition is that we get to see things that individual members see, but most of us don't. This is a wonderful picture. The foggy feeling we have here. The path leading into the picture is a crucial component. But one of the ways we differ from many other nature competitions is that we accept, excuse me, we accept evidence of the hand of man. Now that path, and even the tiny trail marker on the tree beside the path, see that little yellow spot? Even that would be enough to disqualify this photograph from many other competitions. But here it's just such a nice picture, I would not want to eliminate it. The path is leading us into the picture, into the scene. The path is slightly off center, which is exactly where it should be. If the path was right dead center in the composition, it would have been static and not nearly as interesting to look at. Helen has done exactly what she should have done. She's come across something that has some potential, and she has made a bunch of pictures of it. There's no way that you can look at something like this, as complex as this, and take one picture and think that you've got the best out of it. So Helen has explored it. All of her submissions were of this subject, and that's exactly the right approach. A nice scene. The river coming in from the lower right and going diagonally into the scene is very attractive. But what is most interesting to me is, again, the light. We have, there's something kind of nebulous called the quality of the light. I couldn't give you a definition for that, but I know it when I see it. So if we look at the light on the left-hand side, that part of the composition is fairly evenly illuminated. So that gives us lots of detail. On the right-hand side, in the trees, the light is cutting across from the right-hand side and giving us a totally different quality of light. And over there, the light is showing up a lot of texture and different shades in that part of the forest. So this is just a wonderful example of the quality, how the quality of light makes a difference to a photograph or even to a part of a photograph. Beautiful scene. Could someone mute that? Thank you. The one big failing of digital photography is that you cannot make a photograph with the sun in the picture without ending up with a burnt out hole. When we used to shoot in film, this was no problem, but digital simply can't handle it. And so I always wait for sunset shots for the sun to drop just below the horizon. Hopefully that still gives us the light. We would lose the reflection on the water in the foreground, but that might be a better option. The other thing I try to do where possible is to hide the sun behind a tree or a bush or something. But the point is that there's more than one option here. And so you take this picture, maybe that's going to turn out to be the best, but you also wait a few minutes till the sun drops below the rocks and you take a bunch more pictures. The composition, the scene is worth making the effort. Here again, this is just a beautiful photograph, but a major component of that is the hiker in the lower right, which would, as I said earlier, disqualify this photograph from many, many other nature competitions. And so this is a perfect example of why I like the fact that this competition has never totally rejected evidence of the hand of man in a photograph. Now this is our third honorable mention in the other natural history category. If I was to ask you what is the most important aspect of this photograph, most people would say the reflection of the mountain. And that's probably right, but that's not the only important component. The grasses in the foreground are contributing so much to this composition. The Bettina has focused on those grasses. It's really important that they are in sharp focus. And she has carefully arranged the competition so that the grasses all stand out against the reflected sky without interfering with the mountain. And once again, we've got a variation in the lighting. The foreground is in shadow. The background's sunlit, so we've got some contrast there. And overall, technically, it's been handled very well. This was our third honorable mention, as I said. And the second honorable mention goes to Teresa. I just love the stream zigzagging through the frame. As I said before, angles are always visually interesting, but that's just the beginning of what is so good about this particular composition. Maybe both. Once again, it's the direction of the light that is showing up lots of texture along the left side of the stream and highlighting the shrubbery at the top of the composition. So there's a lot of visually interesting stuff going on here. And that's our second honorable mention. First honorable mention is Denis. This is just so perfectly composed. On both sides, the edge of the frame is just inside the tree trunks. If there was a gap on either side, we call those light traps, and they're very, very distracting. So Denis has completely avoided that. So he started out with a nice scene and just made, well, I almost said the most of it, but there's a concept that I practice continually. I'll take the picture and then ask myself, how can it be better? And I take another picture, and I keep taking pictures until I cannot think of anything else to try that might make it better. And so what would make this better? Well, maybe a fish jumping in the water. That's not likely to happen, but at least it gets you started thinking. So how about trying a shot by tossing a pebble out there to make rings like it was a fish jumping? These are the kind of options that make photography more fun. And who knows, they often lead to something better than what you initially noticed. That's our first honorable mention. Third place, this really nice photograph that Sandy has made. Your eye can just wander around all through that, and there's something of interest everywhere. Even the reflection, the bottom of the reflection in the water, there's a texture there happening in the water that is just beautiful. Now, the problem with this is that your eye keeps wandering. It just keeps going around and around. That when you're viewing a photograph, the eye likes to have something to come to rest on. And right now, the only thing that's even beginning to satisfy that is that tiny white tree on the left side of the shoreline. So you take this picture for sure, maybe take a bunch of pictures like this, but then you ask yourself, how could it be better? Well, it would sure be nice if there was a moose swimming across the lake.
Jeez.
That's certainly not going to happen. But that should not stop you from visualizing it, because now you start thinking. Now, I was in exactly this situation, fall color reflected in the water. And when I started looking around for how it could be better, I noticed way off to my right was a loon, and it was swimming in my direction. So I waited, and I waited until that loon was right in front of a spot of bright color like the red leaves we see reflected. And now that photograph of the fall color had all the fall color, but it also had a center of interest. Third place. Second place. Once again, we have this stream leading our eye from the lower right up into the center of the picture. Obviously, all that color is doing a lot of really good stuff here. There's so much detail that you could easily identify the plants. Once again, it all works because of the lighting. If this picture had been taken on an overcast day, it wouldn't be anywhere near as interesting. That's our second place. First place is Daphne's winter scene. It's a marvelous composition, and it has lots of detail everywhere. I just the other day came across a worldwide competition, photography competition, whose theme was winter. And so this I don't know how many entries they had, but they came from all over the world. None of those entries was any better than what Daphne has done right here. But as good as the composition is, the best thing that Daphne has done is convert it to black and white. And not just because the scene is primarily black and white. Black and white has an extra quality to it that just makes it, some scenes, makes a huge difference in how visually appealing they are. So well done, Daphne. It's our first place in the other category. In birds, what's making this interesting is the rather unusual perch of the, well, not the perch, but the position of the chickadee. And that's enough. That makes this chickadee portrait different from most others. Now, we could wish that that leaf was not in the foreground. And as unlikely as it is, after this photograph was made, try moving the camera slightly to the left to try to remove that leaf. What should not have happened is the photograph being made without the photographer ever noticing the leaf. You've got to be aware of all of those things. And I realize that avoiding it may, most likely was impossible because these birds don't stay put for very long, but at least you've got to think about it. On the other hand, Les has just done everything right here. There's no distractions. There's another principle in photographing birds and animals. Try to photograph at or below eye level. And that's what we've got here. It's the low angle that's making this bird look so dramatic. And so once again, the position of the camera is the critical point here. This is a little bit of a compromise. We're still looking down on the bird from a bit of an elevated angle, but maybe that angle was necessary in order for us to be able to see the reflection. And the reflection is important here. So that's it was probably a good choice. My only problem with this is that the bird is a little bit too close to the left-hand side. Another kind of basic rule that I follow is to leave more space in front of anything with a face or a front and back, more space in front than behind. And so it's a matter of focusing and then shifting your composition just a little bit. Otherwise, it's an absolutely excellent photograph. My first reaction to this photograph was, why did Matthew leave all that green space on the left side? But I came to realize that this is a very unusual bird photograph. The pose of the bird and the composition are completely unique, and that's what makes it interesting to look at. So essentially, I think the only thing that I would like to see changed on this is a little bit of cropping on the left-hand side to remove that blob of white. The eye of the viewer always goes to the brightest thing in a composition, and that white blob just is pulling the eye away from the bird, and it needs to stay on the bird. So that could be easily fixed in the computer. Marion's photograph here is just excellent. This is one that I honestly can't think of anything that I would want to see different. We've got two angles here. Remember what I've been saying about angles. We've got the angle of the plant and the angle of the bird. We've got a background that's absolutely perfect. There is enough detail back there so that the background is contributing to the visual interest of the picture, but the background is so soft that none of the detail is competing for our attention. And in addition to that, the shutter speed has been just exactly right to create a little bit of blurring in the wing, which shows us that the hummingbird is actually flying. Too high a shutter speed and the wing might be completely frozen in place. A picture like that makes the bird look like it's falling out of the air. It has no visible means of support. A shutter speed that's too low might cause the wing to be so blurred that we can't see any detail in it. So this is absolutely perfect. Very, very nice detail in this photograph. And once again, it's the direction of the light. The light shining on the face of the bird makes such a huge difference. If the bird had been facing the other way with its face in shadow, we wouldn't see the color in the eye. We wouldn't see the rich color of the beak. We wouldn't see the detail in the fish. And as well, the lighting is showing us the beads of water on the back of the bird. So technically, this is just really excellent. The only thing that I have a problem with is the burned out highlights in the neck. There's one thing about digital photography is that you have to protect the brightest area in the picture. And that means literally deliberately underexposing the picture. I always take my meter reading from the brightest area. In this case, it would be the neck of the bird to make sure that that was recorded or detail was recorded there. You can always lighten it a little bit if necessary in the computer, but you got to capture the detail in the first place. A very nice scene, nicely composed with the flowers all around the bird. Just what a nice frame. And you can see here that it's cropped to a letterbox shape, and just that shape being different from what we're used to seeing makes the picture more visually interesting. The only thing I could see that would have made a difference here, made an improvement, is that principle that I mentioned earlier. Photograph at or below eye level. In this case, it means laying on the ground. And for me, this is an automatic approach. I don't hesitate, no matter what I'm wearing, to drop on the ground. If it's wet, that's fine, to get the picture. But that's a principle I never succeeded in convincing my students to follow. They would not get down on the ground. But this could have been a lot more interesting if we were looking at the little guy from its eye level. This is unusual in that Michael is using a digital camera. As you know, digital cameras are made to record in color. And it's a pretty simple step to convert from color to black and white in the computer. But Michael is using a camera that has been converted to record only black and white. And you can see from the excellent quality of these photographs that it can be very, very effective. I'm not sure that I would want to be photographing everything in black and white. So presumably Michael's carrying a regular color digital camera at the same time, but his choice of black and white for this subject was excellent. And this particular composition is pretty amazing. I don't know if you realize it, but we've got, was talking about angles, well, we've got the angle, we got the angle of the driftwood in the foreground. We've got the angle of the flock of birds on the beach. And then we've got another angle going out here. And then the eye comes back to this flock of flying birds. Just a great composition. This is great because, again, of the unusual position of the bird. You just don't see that very often. So great to capture that. The focus is just right where it needs to be. The fruit of the bird's beak and its eye and its head are nice and are well focused. And the background, for the most part, is pretty nice. The green area behind the bird's head is excellent. The only kind of jarring thing about the background is that branch that runs right through the bird. Obviously, in this case, it's not possible to move the branch, but you take this picture and then is it possible to maybe move the camera slightly to the right or slightly to the left to try and avoid that branch in the background? But once again, the critical thing is that you notice the branch in the background. Whether you are successful in avoiding it, that may or may not happen. But if you don't notice it in the first place, you're going to continually have distractions there that at least some of the time might have been able to be avoided. Now, Chris admitted in his submission that this is obviously the hand of man. But it's such a great photograph that I just had to include it here. Obviously, it would not be likely to win the bird category, but it's just a really interesting thing for us to see. This photograph has got so much going for it, it's hard to know where to start. The composition to begin with, the position of the head and the wings of the bird are unusual. We don't see this. So Malcolm has caught something that is showing us something unusual. And there's a lot of interest just from that. But way more than that is that, once again, the direction of the light, the backlighting of the feathers on the wing on the left-hand side is just beautiful shading of tones in there. The direction of the light going up the face of the bird, giving us full detail there, showing us the color of the beak. And then on the back of the neck, look at the texture in the feathers that the light is showing us. It's just absolutely marvelous. And then you come right around in the circle, the wing in the foreground is more evenly lit, and that is showing us all the detail in that wing. Just a great all-around shot. And I don't know whether this was pure chance. Some might call it luck. I just don't know. But clicking the shutter, just as the hummingbird flings its head around, shaking off water drops, and having a shutter speed that is low enough to record the movement. You wouldn't normally be, presumably a telephoto lens was used here, you wouldn't normally be using a telephoto lens when you're photographing, or you wouldn't, sorry, you would not normally be using a low shutter speed when you're shooting with a telephoto lens. But this has just worked out beautifully. But more than that, the bird is slightly off center, so the composition is excellent. The background is excellent. The background's contributing to the visual appeal. And what I find really remarkable is that the hummingbird is twisting his head, and the beak is staying almost exactly in the same place, because the beak is sharp for the most part, while the head rotates around it. So not only technically is this a great achievement, but it's hugely interesting because it's showing us something that, well, all the hummingbirds I photographed, I've never seen anything like this, and certainly never recorded it. So nice going, Malcolm. Lots of detail here, and this is great. The detail that we can see in the neck of the bird, the face of the bird, the shading, delicate colors that we see. The background is nice and soft. It's setting off the bird. The soft background actually makes the bird look sharper. So the only thing about this is, on the right-hand side is a brightly colored reed. And that is tremendously distracting, competing with the bird for our attention. So once again, make this shot. Now, how could it be better? Oh, yeah, there's that bright reed there. I'm going to shift a little bit to the right and eliminate that from the composition. If you're not thinking, how can it be better? You're not going to make it better. You're going to miss opportunities. Another excellent photograph. The owl is obviously paying no attention to the photographer at all. So nobody can accuse this photographer of abusing birds. So this is, Mankay has caught the bird in flight and managed to make an excellent composition at the same time. We've got more space in front than we have behind, and that's important. Technically, we've got all the detail we need in the wing and face of the bird. So all around, very, very well done. This is an interesting comparison. The bird is superbly focused. We've got good detail everywhere we need to have detail in the bird. But because cameras, for the most part, focus right in the center of the viewfinder, there's a great temptation to focus and shoot with the subject right in the center of the viewfinder. And that makes for a pretty static composition. Excuse me, I'm getting hoarse here. So this would have been so much more interesting to look at if we had had a little more space in front of the bird than behind. That could be accomplished even now by cropping a little bit off the left-hand side. Cropping is a perfectly legitimate tool to use in the computer, and it done properly, it can be very effective. So that would be something that would be worth trying. Jerome's picture of the hummingbird is excellent in that we have lots of detail in the bird. We have no distracting elements in the composition. So our attention is all focused on the bird. The only problem is that the background is empty. It's not contributing in any way. As you'll see in some of the other pictures coming up, having something going on in the background, having the background contribute is important. On the other hand, Jerome has broken every rule in the book here and gotten away with it. It just goes to show that when it comes to photography, you can't say anything is carved in stone. Ordinarily, a bird mixed in with so many branches is just not going to work. The branches are just too much of a distraction. But it's okay in this case, because of the direction of the light. The light is giving us full detail in the bird, and it's even creating some texture in the branches, particularly the branch the bird is sitting on, that's adding interest. So even having the bird's head turned to the side is important here. So keep on breaking the rules. Sometimes it works. Denis' shot of again is using some really interesting light. You can see how the light's coming from the right-hand side, showing up texture in the tree bark, which is adding tremendously to the visual interest, and then illuminating the bird and giving us full detail there. So this is just a really nice picture. How could it be better? Perhaps, again, crop off a little bit of the busyness on the left-hand side, but otherwise, really nice. Again, we've got an angle here of the log that the chicks are sitting on. What's making this picture interesting is the texture in the water. The water is not just blah. It is contributing. But what is really fun about this picture is looking individually at each of those little baby birds. they're all different. Everyone is different. And so there's a lot of interesting stuff going on here. And it's a photograph that you can spend a bit of time looking at. And that's always a compliment, a sign of a good composition and an interesting subject if it holds a viewer's attention. This has got to be almost the quintessential picture of a very thrush. They're around here in the winter time, so the snow is completely appropriate. That background is beautiful. The pose of the bird is interesting. The angle of the branch that the bird is perched on is interesting. But we've got that big ugly branch right in the foreground to the left of the bird, and the smaller branch above the bird that are hugely distracting. So once again, take the picture. How can it be better? Maybe I can move to the right and eliminate at least one of those distracting branches. But if you don't notice them, you're never going to have an opportunity to possibly correct for them. I really like this because it's such an unusual bird picture. We're looking down on the bird, and that's okay in this case because that gives us the true impression that the bird's not up in a tree. It's in a tree that's high up on a hillside or a mountainside. So we've got a unique perspective going on here. But also, Aldona's composition is very precise. That small branch that's coming down just above the back of the bird could so easily have cut into the bird and just destroyed this as a photograph. But with the bird placed just exactly right, that's avoided. And we have a very successful photograph. Once again, at or below eye level. From this elevated level, we're seeing a bunch of background that just isn't very interesting. We don't need that. But if the camera was down at ground level and looking up at the bird, maybe, can't be sure, but maybe we would have had a better background. But if you don't try it, you're not going to know. But if you look at any professional photograph of a bird, you will rarely see one that's looking down on the bird. I've really enjoyed watching Penny's progress over the years. Her photographs every year have been better than the ones before. And this year, she's done a really good job catching the absolute quintessential position of a hummingbird with the red flowering current, and catching just exactly the right moment is really a difficult thing to do. So nice going, Penny. This is just a great photograph. Okay, so now Penny's looking down on this bird. But in this case, it's pretty much necessary in order to really appreciate all the color and texture that's in the back of the bird. You wouldn't see that from a lower angle. But it could still be better. if we had a blue sky reflected in the water so that the background was blue instead of muddy, the photograph would be a lot more attractive. So once you know that the bird's there, you go back and hope for a blue sky day and watch for the sky reflected in the water. Same thing applies to the water here. But the detail in the bird is absolutely superb here. We can see even fine feathers. And again, an unusual angle, but it's showing us something that we're not used to seeing. So the picture gains interest from that. Wow, this is really a remarkable photograph. It's a black oyster catcher. Most of us are familiar with them.
That's cool.
Most of us probably know they have red eyes and red beaks, but have we ever seen anything like this? A matter of timing, of the right position of the camera, and all the right settings on the camera. We've got those little drops of water, all are showing nicely. The detail in the feathers is all there, but those glaring eyes and the red beak that makes it look like there's a fire burning in there among the feathers. It just visually super interesting. And Joan's photograph, again, is excellent from a number of different perspectives. The shape of the rock is interesting. The texture in the rock is interesting. The arrangement of the birds is interesting. But the reason it's all working is the direction of the light coming from the left. It's the direction of light that's showing all of the texture in the rock and illuminating the birds. It's just a really great thing that almost all the birds are facing into the light so that their faces are all illuminated. So a great composition, great to that Joan saw this, the potential here, and managed to capture it. Now, Carly's made a really nice composition here. Obviously, the original picture has been cropped so that we have, as I've been preaching, more space in front than behind. And technically the background is good, the exposure is good. I'm just a little bit concerned that there's been a little too much cropping happening here because we're starting to lose sharpness in the feathers of the bird. My principle when it comes to cropping is that I will crop either side to side or top to bottom, never both. Because as soon as you start reaching into the middle of a picture and trying to pull something out, you start losing sharpness and you start showing up digital grain or digital noise. Once again, it's the light that's showing us all of the intense color here. So the lighting is beautiful. The background is good. And the face, the head and face and neck are nice and sharp. The wings are a little bit blurred, but that's fine because it's obvious that they're moving. But once again, there's less space in front of the bird than behind. So if the camera had been shifted a little bit to the left, we might have been able to include the rest of that far wing, and we would have had the bird looking into the picture instead of looking at the edge of the picture. What I find remarkable about Caroline's photograph here is the amount of detail that's in there. If you look everywhere from the closest foreground right to as far back as you can see, there's ever more detail to be seen. Each one of those birds is clearly defined, as are the plants growing in the water. It's quite a remarkable achievement, and an interesting composition. We've got the curving shoreline and the birds filling in with a pattern in filling most of the sky.
Got this one backwards too.
Now, this is our fourth honorable mention. And I think it's pretty obvious what is great about this. The bird is nice and sharp. The light on the bird is excellent, but the bird is about to crash into the side of the frame. So this has got to become, I know these situations happen on the spur of the moment. You don't have time to think about it very much. So this has got to become automatic, that you focus on the bird and then shift the camera a little bit to give more space in front. Now, Selena, I would suggest that you try, you may not like it, but I would try cropping this to a vertical. That's going to at least balance the space in front and behind the bird. You're only cropping from the ends. You're not cropping from top and bottom at the same time. And so I think the photograph could stand that, and I think the composition would be more interesting if you did that. That's our fourth honorable mention. Our third honorable mention, Matthew's great shot. The sandhill crane is in shadow while the background has got light on it, and that light is just creating a whole bunch of different shades and effects and textures back there. While our eye is focused, is concentrated on the bird, the background is contributing. The composition is great. Bird, more space in front. So the only thing that's about this is those three, whatever they are, shining lights in the background in front of the bird. And I'm afraid that I find those just really distracting. So once again, you would have been able to see those through the viewfinder, and maybe you could change the camera position enough to avoid them. That's our third honorable mention. Now you're going to have to look hard, but there is a ptarmigan right in the center of this picture. And that's what makes it interesting. We all know that ptarmigan generally are pretty well camouflaged, but this is absolutely the best example of camouflage that certainly I've ever seen. It's a great photograph as it is. But another point that I used to preach to my classes, when you're photographing birds, you've got to see the beak. In this case, the bird is looking straight at the camera and we don't see the beak. If the head had turned a little bit to the side so that we could see the outline of the head, the bird would be more discernible and the picture would have been more interesting. so this is a unique situation and would have been worth spending, and I hope Murray did, spending a bit of time photographing different compositions with the bird in different positions. I mean, the head of a bird is never still. So it's only a matter of waiting a few seconds for the head to turn so that you can see the bill, the beak. And that's our second honorable mention. First honorable mention, Helen's great composition. The goose is nicely focused. It's nicely placed in the frame. And we have just a totally appropriate background filling the rest of the frame. It's a nice, simple composition, and it works very, very well. So in third place, one of the things that was really different about this year's competition is with COVID shutting down travel, you may have already picked up on this. Almost all of the pictures that were submitted are local subjects. And so we've had a number of really nice pictures of Anna's hummingbirds. This one is excellent because of the light on the birds showing up all that color. We've got really nice focus on the bird, so we can see all the detail in the feathers. The background, for the most part, works very well. The part of the background that's directly behind the bird has got a little bit of something going on in there, so it's contributing. The problem with this composition is that branch that's angling down on the right-hand side that is very distracting. And again, perhaps by moving the camera a little bit to the right, a very similar picture might have been made, but with a better background. That's our third place. Second place, what a marvelous photograph. Look at that. Not only have we caught the eagle in just a wonderful position, we've got complete detail everywhere in the bird, and the light is illuminating it perfectly, coming from the front. This picture just simply wouldn't work if the bird was going the other way and the light was hitting it from the back.
That's Zach.
But we've once again, we've got more space in front, so excellent composition, but it doesn't end there. Look at all the little birds that are fleeing in the foreground. That adds hugely to the overall visual interest of the photograph. That's our second place in birds. First place is Helen's, Anna's. It's got all of the good stuff that we mentioned before. We've got lots of detail in the bird, nice color in the head. The composition is absolutely superb, even to the point where the branch that the bird's sitting on is interesting in itself. We've got more space on the in front of the bird, but what is set this picture apart from the other Annas that we've seen is the background. The background is contributing so much to this that it's the same composition with a less interesting background would not have worked nearly as well. So nice going, Helen. That's our first place. Entomology and Spiders, that was a pretty small submission this year, but still some interesting things. The crab spider that most of us would not even see. but Marion's got nice sharp detail just about everywhere in it. You can even see the hairs on the legs of the spider. Taken at face value, this is a really interesting composition. It's got an interesting subject. The subject is well placed both on the flower and in the frame. But this has been cropped so much that we're seeing a lot of digital noise in the background. So if this same exact composition had been made with a macro lens, so that we had top quality throughout, it would be a great photograph. But it's just an example of the perils of trying to extract a good photograph out of one that maybe wasn't so good when it was first came out of the camera. Very good lighting, very good background, but I think and really nice color. But I think what's of greatest interest here is that it's showing us a critter that probably none of us have seen before, and it's showing us full detail in the insect. Even in the wings that would normally be just a smooth surface, we've got texture showing up in there. So the direction of the light here, once again, is helping a lot. And this is a great example of the fact that you don't have to have an exotic subject to make an interesting photograph. I mean, we're all familiar with houseflies, but have many of us ever seen one in this much detail? Well, there it is. So good on you, Selena, for doing that. The first thing that strikes you about this photograph is how sharp it is. And that's a dead giveaway that that sharpness has been artificially added in the computer. Now, we have stated that the judges have the option of declining to accept a photograph that shows too much computer manipulation. And that's what we're seeing here. But so why is this photograph here? Not only has it been accepted, we put it in third place. And the reason is that looking past the over-processing, we have a really excellent photograph. It didn't need all that help from the computer. So we decided that it was worth keeping in just to allow the discussion of this. I mean, we're struggling to keep our nature competition as natural as possible. And that just doesn't allow for over-processing in the computer. And unfortunately, that has become so widespread that, as I say, it's a struggle. So I wanted to bring this up. But also just to realize when you've got a good picture, and you don't have to do anything more to it in the computer. Second place, Phil Edgell is a good friend of this competition. He's always has interesting entries. And once again, this unique pose in the position of the spider, excellent detail. We see full detail in the face of the spider, and even here, we've got more space in front than behind. So the composition is great. The colors are great. The background is good in terms of setting off the shape of the spider. I can always count on Phil to come up with interesting stuff every year. That's our second place. First place in the insects. Terry actually used a telephoto lens that most of us would use for photographing birds. And he's managed this extremely well from a technical point of view. The body of the dragonfly is on an angle in the frame. The wings are blurred enough to show us that it's in fact in flight. And it's just a fun photograph to look at. If you consider his title, The Smiling Dragonfly, and the expression on the face, it's a really good photograph. That's our first place. Botany, a nice classic photograph. The main subject is nicely in focus. It's a nice appealing shape, and it's beautifully set off against the out of focus background. Photographing plants is all about choosing the right plant, and that has as much to do with the position of the plant relative to the background as it does with the condition of the plant itself. You can have a perfect flower, but if it's got a messy background, it's not going to work. Another really nice composition from Marion. Lots of nice color. We've got the bee acting as a very effective center of interest, which is placed slightly off center. And that's exactly where it should be. The rest of the frame is filled nicely with lots of color. The direction of light is good. It's showing up the detail on the bee and also showing up texture in the centers and the petals of the flowers. I was impressed with this in that Nina has once again seen something that most of us would not have even noticed. But this miniature composition that she has put together is just quite wonderful. The only thing that you might try to make it a little bit, make a bit of an improvement is to crop a bit off the top so that the top of the picture is inside the log. We can't take anything off the bottom because there's detail in the moss that comes pretty close to the bottom of the composition. Whoop, sorry. Another of Daphne's excellent photographs. Nice lighting again, showing us the full detail in the flowers and a nicely blurred background. Caroline, this is really a nice picture. I like it. It's got such a nice feel. It's kind of conveys the feel of the West Coast forest, in a subtle way. It's hard to put my finger on it, but it just really works well. Once again, the flower is nicely set off against a nice soft background. So the flower itself is really excellent. I don't think we need all of that stem. So I think a bit, maybe a quarter of the frame could be cropped off the bottom and put more emphasis on the flower and make for a stronger composition. Now, Teresa is showing us a plant that not many of us probably even know about. This is called false box. And those flowers are so small, maybe 1/8 of an inch across, that they're largely overlooked. And so this is really good from the point of view of showing us something that perhaps many of us haven't seen before. Another one of Phil's great composition. And as I said, it's all about picking the right plant. And that's certainly the case here. The shape of this plant is excellent. It's got a good display of berries. It's in a position where the background can be placed out of focus. And so it's just altogether a well-chosen scene to photograph. Again here, picking the right plant with the right lighting and the right background. Same again. This is a cluster of flowers that could easily have just become a mess, a jumble of lines that don't work. But Aldona has chosen the perfect angle. She's achieved the perfect amount of depth of field so that we've got detail everywhere that we need it. Very nice composition, but once again, there's a little bit too much cropping going on here, and we're losing sharpness. This same composition, if the camera had moved in a little bit, would have been absolutely excellent. And Bill's photograph, these are buds of a monkshood. And again, it's unusual. We would tend to want to photograph the open flowers, but because he's been able to show us all of the subtle detail in the bud, it makes this interesting to look at, and nicely set off against the soft out of focus background. It's what I've been saying about photographers seeing things that many other people would miss, and that's the case here. A really interesting composition, as much because of the situation as the plants themselves, because the background is really, really interesting. But we're also beginning to see some digital noise in the background, so perhaps a bit too much cropping here. This is our third honorable mention in the insect category. I just wish the camera had been raised up a tiny bit so that we could see the rest of the fly. But otherwise, it's beautiful. Nice color, nice subtle pink through the petals, and good detail in the part of the fly that we can see. It's our third honorable mention. Our second honorable mention, again, technically beautiful, nice and lots of nice detail in the salal flowers. The angle of the stem is great. So it's a good composition, technically very well handled. It's our second honorable mention. First honorable mention is that Denise, again, picking the right plant. The light on this plant is showing up all the interesting detail, but the situation of the plant is such that Denis has been able to arrange a dark background, which just makes the detail that we're looking at all the more interesting and obvious. First honorable mention. Third place goes to Phil. Once again, choosing the right plant. We've got interesting shapes here. None of the shapes are interfering with one another. We've got a perfect flower, and the background is excellent. It's setting off the plant and contributing to the visual interest of the photograph. That's our third place. Second place goes to Marion. Almost everything about this picture is just excellent. The color, the choice of the perfect flower, the angle of the flower in the frame, the detail in the flower, the unsharp background, just all really, really well done. That's our second place in botany. First place goes to Mankay. It's pretty obvious what is great about this picture. So I don't need to analyze it, but even this could be better. Those twigs that are sticking up from the bottom on the left-hand side could have and should have been removed. That would have just eliminated the only kind of distraction that's going on here. Otherwise, the color, the shapes, the background all work just beautifully. First place in botany. Now, hang in there. We don't have too many more pictures to go. Nice composition. We've got more space in front. You can see how important this is. More space in front of the face of the animal and full detail everywhere in the picture. The low angle here is what's making, or at least adding, a huge amount of interest. If Jerome had been standing up in the boat and shooting down on more of a high angle, the picture wouldn't have been as interesting. Joan's always good for leaping whales. And one of the things that I have a problem with so many pictures of leaping whales is that they're out in the middle of the ocean someplace with nothing but sky in the background. Here we have an honest to goodness background. And I think that contributes a lot to the picture. So Denis, this is our second honorable mention, just because it's such a good picture of a pika. We're looking up at it at or below eye level, nicely done, lots of detail. Look at the sharpness of those whiskers. So the only thing I'd suggest is cropping a little bit off the right-hand side. The face is a little bit too close to the left side of the frame. It's our third honorable mention. Second honorable mention, and what this picture is all about is the lighting, the backlighting on the animals and particularly on the antlers. It's really nice to see that. The second honorable mention. First honorable mention, this is great because our eye goes into the tree trunk and then it's just led right up to the raccoon, which is not dead center. The leaves around are all very, very suitable, and they don't interfere with our view of the subject. Nice composition. In third place, Bruce's picture of a humpback whale feeding. Well, what makes this so interesting is that it's showing us the tongue and the baleen, which are things that I've never seen in a photograph before. So it can't show up very often, but Bruce has managed to catch that. It's our third place. This is about the only exotic animal we have in the competition. Kind of neat. And this is, it's an excellent photograph in terms of the detail that we can see both in the texture in the tree and in the face of the subject. So the only kind of jarring thing are the branches that are behind the animal. Would it have been possible to move the camera a little bit, maybe to the left to avoid those? There's no way I can know that for sure, but it's something that should at least have been tried. That's our second place. In first place, not surprisingly, goes to Joan. She does so well in all of these pictures. She always shows us these great pictures of breaching whales, but this one is so outstanding because of the background, because we're seeing probably Mount Baker, but I can't be sure of that. But that mountain just makes the photograph. And in spite of everything else that's going on, the horizon is perfectly straight. Now, to be able to concentrate enough to get the horizon straight while you're catching this kind of action is pretty remarkable. So that's our first place in the mammals category. So we have only one more photograph, and that's the best in show, and that's going to Marion. I have made many, many excellent photographs of spotted towhees, but none of them come close to this one. Everything about this picture is just perfect. The angle of the bird, the background, even the raindrops coming down, the sharpness of the bird. But what makes this picture stand out is the action that's going on. It's not just a picture of a bird sitting on a bush. And for that reason, this is the best in show, and there was no disagreement about that at all. So that's your photo competition for 2022.